Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version podcast is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Pamela George. Pamela is a financial powerhouse, but it wasn't always that way. She was born into poverty and raised by an illiterate mother. As a young child, Pamela vowed to create her own financial wealth, breaking the cycle, the poverty that had been passed on to her by her family. Through her work, Pamela has healed her money trauma and now stands before us all as a strong and financially empowered woman. She now lives her purposes by supporting women across the globe to create their own financial freedom and learn how to build generational wealth through her signature framework, the 7 Pillars of Money Management. Welcome, Pamela. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me here, Sabrina.
Yes, thank you. You know what? One of my favoriteest things is when people's stories align so beautifully with what they're doing. I just think that it's so cool,
It took a while though. It took
Yeah.
a while. I was lost for a long time, and while I knew there had to be something more significant and more meaningful for the suffering I went through. I think I was in survival for so long that I couldn't see the message. I couldn't see the meaning, but thank God I did, and here I am. I am so grateful for that now. I know it sounds cliche, but I am so grateful for what I went through because it helps me be who I am and help women in the process.
Yeah, I think it's such a wonderful place to be in. I remember feeling that and thinking that probably about a decade ago, but it's so interesting how every year I become more and more and more grateful for my story. It's the ever evolving mindset is just such a beautiful thing.
It is. And I mean there was so much struggle, so much pain, so much survival that if you had said this to me, I don't know, 15 years ago, I'll be shut up. You really don't know what I went through.
Yeah.
You can't tell me I am creating a purpose. So down the road, I will serve women. In fact, I would have been very offended by it
Yeah.
back then and hurt. But here I am. What's the saying? Vision is 2020. I
Yeah.
look back now, and in my work with counseling women, there's hardly anything that a woman would share with me, and I'll be like, "Ugh, I can't really relate to that, because I've been through so much.
Mhm.
I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. So
Yeah.
I am grateful. I sit here, I talk to you, and I am grateful.
I love that. I love the point of which you are in right now in your life, and I'm so excited to have you. And I feel grateful that you are taking some time out of your day to sit down and share some of your awesome story and your past journeys with us, because it's not really necessary for people to do that if they don't want to. So I so appreciate ladies like you who understand the mission, who get the importance of storytelling, and who come on and take a hour or so of their time to hang out with me. So I want to just kind of dive in, and I want to ask, what story, if you could pick any of the stories from beginning till now, what would you say was the story that changed your entire life?
Hmm.
And what did you learn from that story?
Oh gosh, it will start very Hollywood cliche. My mother my younger sister, myself, literally being thrown out into the streets by my stepfather. All right. I remember the way I remember it. It's a Sunday night, but I don't know. I think I make that part up. But I know it was raining. I know it was late. And, we had this house that we lived in. And back then, so I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And back then, the house was pretty nice house in the village. And you don't think that you will be homeless when there's a house right there. But you're thrown out with the clothes you have on, a few plastic grocery bags, and my mother is there crying, and I believe I was crying. My younger sister was definitely crying. And where do we go? In the intro, you mentioned that my mother was illiterate. Yes, she couldn't read or write, but she could count money. That much we'd always joke and say. She could count money. Um, but she's there, uneducated. This was a woman at the time, late 40s, I'm guessing, early 50s, but she was an old woman by that time, the amount of stress she would have been through. But being homeless was really something that I feel like my bones and my cells absorbed that, and it changed. Like, I know it sounds, you hear it on TV and you hear the saying, I feel like it changed my DNA, if that's possible. But it changed something in me, in my core, because the thing is, before that night of, rain, being put out homeless on the street, um and even before the house that we were thrown out from, my mother had her own house and raised 9 children on her own. Very independent woman. Can't read or write, right? But she had, it's called a roti shop. For those of you who know Trinidadian cuisine, it's a curry dish with a type of a flat bread. It's delicious. Go buy one if you can. Wherever, I'm sure you'll find a roti shop somewhere wherever you are. Anyway, she was able to run this roti shop. Very entrepreneurial spirit, right? That's where I feel I get my desire to have my own business from. But anyway, she raised her children, she ran her roti shop, and was able to build a house on her own without a mortgage, was able to do all these things that I look back now and I'm like, how did she check stock, balance the books, do whatever she had to do without being able to read or write? But she did it. And she was doing pretty good. So at this time, I might have been, let's say, 6 or 7 from what I remember. And at about that time as well, that's when she met my stepfather. And she was that age, she had 9 children, but I really believe that that was the first time she fell in love. She wasn't in love. She had her 9 kids, she was married twice, but they were all both arranged marriages, Indian culture back then, right?
Yeah.
And I think for the first time she fell in love and she didn't know what to do with it. She felt, so you know how it is when you just fall in love, that sweet feeling you get, you walking on cloud nine. I think that's what happened. And everything she knew about being independent and self-sufficient, because that is what she was before, she gave it all up because this man, I guess, promised her or just made her feel a certain way. And within a couple months, she sold a house that she built. And my older siblings, they were married or they moved out, and it's just my younger sister and I. We moved in with my stepfather, and she used the proceeds of the sale of her house to build a house on his property, on his land. And back then, when he was threatening to throw us out, and when he eventually did, she spoke to a lawyer and said, well, it's his land, and the purchasing of all the materials to build a house was all done in his name. So she had no proof that that was her money.
Wow.
So that's the story that changed my life, that I will never give up that kind of power to anybody. I will
Wow.
hold on to that power. Yeah. So did that answer your question? I know I went about it in a roundabout way.
Yes. Wow. Have you seen that story or that belief system kind of haunt you in a way throughout your life? Like the fear of that coming up at all?
You know, I I've been blessed. I have this amazing ability. When something shitty happens,
Uh-huh.
I turn that shit around and I make it into something positive. I don't know when that started happening. I don't know if I'm fully aware of when it's happening to me or when I'm doing it, but it's done. So I was never the person who had trust issues with a boyfriend because someone stole from my mother. I was never that person. I never had issues with trust. What I did though was my money is my money, your money is your money. And I have a saying even now, my money and love don't mix. I don't mix it. So that's how it affected me. I can't say, at least I don't see the negative right now. Now, maybe if you ask an ex boyfriend, they might say differently. But I think the way I have managed that, I would like to think it was positive. Um, some might argue that actually I've been told I'm a little too independent. Like I get shit done. I don't wait for folks to do things. I get shit done. That could be looked as being negative. I don't think it is. I do what I need to do. I'm independent, self-sufficient. I get shit done.
I
You
love
know,
it.
yeah.
Who do you think you get that from? Where do you learn that?
um, some of it I think passed down from my mother, but some of it I think, the whole nurture nature thing, I feel some of it was out of necessity and survival. Right? If I want something to be done, I got to do it for myself because there was nobody to do it for me. My mother died when I was 19, but I have been on my own. So we were homeless at that time. Um, let's say from around, so when we got thrown out the first time, so let's go back a little bit, I might have been like 9 or 10. But then she'll beg and she'll go back. Can you take me back? Because there's nowhere for her to stay with her children, right? I don't beg. I don't beg any man. Right? But and that's what you don't do that. But anyway, we back and forth, back and forth. After 6 months, he threw us out again, beat us. It was a very, very violent home. He beat all of us except my younger sister. He adored her. But we go back and forth. After a while, I got fed up. So I think I might have been like 12 or 13. I ran away from home. And I was homeless for a while. I lived with some older siblings. And when I was about 16, I moved back to live with my mother and my sister, who at the time had finally left my stepdad's. I don't call him stepdad. I don't know why I'm used stepfather.
Mhm.
And they were living in a garage, in somebody's garage. And let me just say, a garage in Trinidad and Tobago back then, it's not the typical first world garage that we know of here in North America, right?
Wow. Okay.
So I moved in there and lived with her, and we were just like going from place to place asking folks if we can live with them, right? And and she died when I was 19, but I do feel that what I have seen her go through, as well as me having to survive, because when she passed away when I was 19, my younger sister was 14. So I had to take care of her. I had to grow up pretty fast. So a lot of things, a lot of these independent, self-sufficient, all these things came about as a result of having to survive. And I do feel some of it came from my mother, like inherently came from my mother. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Um, what was the shift for you? So, house to house, living in garages. When did you get a step up or a hand up? How did that happen?
Girl, I don't think I got a hand up anywhere. When you pour, people could read. There are people out there who treat you like crap. They don't value you for anything. There was so much abuse in my young life, so much of bullying, so much of humiliation. I just from a very, very young age, I visioned that I wanted a life better than the one I had, right? And so I think that was the first step. And then at some point, I started to believe I might be poor, I might be all these things, but I deserve that life. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't hurt anybody. I deserve that what I want. And I think that determination really led me to thrive and just take advantage of what was put in front of me, the few things that were. But it was an uphill battle. I remember back then, um, I was applying for jobs. So I did retail for a long time. Although I did really well in high school and stuff, I couldn't get a job because I couldn't type. And I remember going to this lady who had a typing school, and I said, how much? I asked her how much are her typing classes, and it was a term, one term, and I think it was $600. But I didn't have $600 to put up front, so I asked her. I said, because at that time it's just me and my youngest sister. I'm working in retail. I'm sending her to school. I have to pay rent. There's food and all of that. So I asked the lady, can I pay by class? I think it was $25 or $50 a class. And she said, no. So I'm like, but how will I get this job and how will I move up if I can't even learn to type? So what I started doing was I started to sell stockings, tights, right? So I'll tell you how I did that. That's my first business. So I noticed at that time the same office that I wanted to work in, all the women there were wearing stockings and high heel shoes. And I thought, well, what if I can get it at a cheaper price and sell it to them? So I had this friend with a car, and I asked him, I said, if I were to get stockings wholesale to buy, will you go with me to pick it up and then deliver it? He said yes. And I said, I'll pay you, but I want to know if you'll be available. He said yes. And then I called the stockings factory. I don't remember the name. And I asked them, if there's a wholesale price if I buy a certain amount. They said yes. And let's say I had to buy 20 dozen of stockings, so 20 boxes, each with 12 in it. Then I would get the wholesale price. So I'm like, okay, good. So now I'm like, where do I get the money to buy the stockings to sell it? So I went to all these banks and insurance companies everywhere that ladies were wearing stockings. And I said, I am selling stockings. And, you can buy it by the dozen and I'll deliver it in a few days. I think I would have said a week, but I need 50% down in order to do that. So they paid me 50% down, and I had enough money by the time I did that. And it's pavement in the hot sun, 32 degrees, right? Walking pavement, going into offices. And I did that maybe for about 3 days, but I got enough money to buy the wholesale price of the 20 dozen or whatever it was. And then my friend took me, pick it up, we delivered it, collect the balance, and there I was with my first set of profit after I paid him. I now had enough money to buy more stockings without having to get deposit, although I still continued with the deposit. And that was my first business. And again, I feel I got that from my mother.
Wow. How crazy.
When I look back now, I'm wondering, do I have the gumption to do that now? I don't know. But back then, I wanted better for myself, and I wanted more than just working in a store. Nothing is working wrong with working in a store, but I wanted more. And I said, okay, so I got that money. I was able to pay for the typing classes. In fact, by the time I got enough money, I could afford a better school than this lady's school. I went to another company that offered a little more than what she was just offering, and I was able to do the typing, got I think it's Pittman's typing exam back then. I got it, and I was able to get a job in an office. And from there, I just got a better job and a better job and a better job. Yeah.
Wow. That
Thank
is
you.
so fantastic. What would you say, throughout all of these ups and downs and twists and turns, what would you say has been the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
I feel that There's so many lessons, but the number one, I would say, I feel whatever we need to move on in life and not just survive, but to thrive. I feel whatever it is, it already exists deep inside of us. We just need to be brave enough to find it. And sometimes that means staying quiet and alone and listening. Sometimes it means going to therapy. Sometimes, it can come to you in different ways. You can find it in many ways, but I feel it's deep down inside. Yeah. And for me, my way was a combination of being silent and alone and listening, as well as therapy, energy work, and that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You already have it. You already have it. You just need to search and get it, and discover what is it. It lives there. You have to just find it, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went from entrepreneur to having a few jobs back to entrepreneurship. How did
Yeah.
that journey?
Well, from the moment I started to work the office job, which was like my standard, I felt once I got an office job, I'm good to go. When you come from poverty and struggling, the
Yeah.
office job seemed like you have made it. But I found there was a restlessness every time. I would love my job, it would be good jobs, but there was always a restlessness. And I would think that, and this is a life lesson, I would always think it was the organization. There's something wrong with them, they're not doing it right, or I would do it better, that type of thing. And I would find faults with certain things, or I would say things like, I don't want to be in this business. What am I helping them do? I don't see the difference that I'm making. And I changed jobs. Like after 2 years, I got the itch. After 2 years, I'm ready to leave. And then after when I hit my 30s, I'm like, okay, come on, Pam. You're the common denominator in all of these things.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like I had shitty bosses. I had amazing bosses, amazing managers. So that wasn't the problem. But then in my 30s, I just like, I am the common denominator here. What is really going on? And again, that soul searching, the answer that I'm seeking was inside of me. And I realized, no, the last time I felt alive was when I was selling stockings. Right. And I wanted to, I that was when I realized I need to start my own business. And I did for a little while, but the economy in Trinidad and the way things are going, I was doing it part-time, like on the side, a side gig, and that didn't work. And by that time I had a mortgage and I had the trappings, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, I can't leave. I need this. But then I got a break with, I was working with the British High Commission, and it was about year two. So the British High Commission in Trinidad. And about year two, I'm getting the itch again, right? And I want to leave. And this company in the UK, they got to know me and they reached out and they're like, we're looking for a representative for the Caribbean. Would you be interested? I'm like, well, I don't know, I could be. And they flew me out to England, London, England, to meet and stuff. And it involved travel and involved a bit of me creating a lot of things on the payroll, but a lot of it was dependent on me doing my own marketing for the company and that type of thing. And I was like, yes, I get to do that. I don't just have to go to an office and sit down and go with everybody's rules. I get to create stuff. So this might have been, I don't know, 2005 or something like that. And I did that and I'm loving it and traveling to all these five-star hotels and living the life. And I remember one night I am in Barbados, sitting on the balcony. The ocean is right there. I'm hearing the waves flapping, and I'm there with this beautiful dinner, glass of wine. And I'm thinking, oh, this is the life. But I'm lonely. I want a man. I want a man to share this with. That was the only thing that was missing. And then I met the man. And I decided, you know what? Because the other thing too, I was sort of getting I don't want to say bored, but bored is the word that comes to mind. I feel like I wanted to explore more than Trinidad and more than the Caribbean. I wanted to see the big world out there.
Yeah.
So, and he was Canadian. And I'm like, you know what? I can move to Canada. I can do the job I'm still doing with the company in England. And that's what I did. And I moved here, and the marriage just it fell flat. Within 5 years, I was divorced. Right? Luckily, I saw it happening. I was able to get a job. But you know what happens with me and jobs? I get an itch after 2 years. Right? So, but this particular job, because I was recently divorced and stuff, I had to keep my ass there for a while. So I stayed there for 6 years. And then I got an offer to, and that job was as a financial aid officer with a college. Right. So I was sort of doing what I like regarding money because I always love handling money and dealing with money. And then I got a job offer to be a credit counselor. Did it, got the 2 year itch, left and said, fuck it. I am going to start my own business. But because by that time, I had done so much personal development, so
Yeah.
much work on myself. I knew exactly what I wanted and I had the money to back it up. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing, diving in headfirst into my own business. And there we had it. Sandala Financial Literacy Counseling.
I love it.
Thank
Why
you.
sand dollar?
Mm.
What's the meaning?
So when I started my business in January 2018, it wasn't Sandala, it was Pamela George Financial Literacy. First of all, as a website, it's just too long. As an email address, it's just too long. But coming from where I came from, I wanted to literally make a name for myself. And that allowed me, you say Pamela George, and most in Ottawa folks know who I am, and in other places as well. I literally made a name for myself. But then again, we all growing and we learning, right? This year, in not yeah, the beginning of this year, I decided, okay, so my business has been around, it's almost 4 years. And I had to, go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what do I want to do now? Because I've met my objectives. I did what I wanted to do. Business is growing. Where do I want to go now? And the answer that came to me, again, remember, all the answers are here in your gut, right? The answer that came to me is that I need to build a business that I can scale and sell as part of my retirement plan when I'm 63 or whatever. So I had to create this business now. I had to do things in such a way that would start putting things in place for selling. It wouldn't be a good idea to try to sell Pamela George Financial Literacy. It's why KFC is no longer Kentucky Fried Chicken. They had to rebrand, right? So I switched to Sand Dollar. Sand Dollar, a big part of it, it's the beach. I'm from an island. The ocean is my space. It's where I feel most at peace as well as energized at the same time. It's where I go to not just get balance but be centered, so that I wanted something with a beach theme. And when you listen to what Sand Dollar is, it's actually called mermaid money. It's called mermaid money. But the little things inside the sand dollar that you can break off, and that sometimes folks say it looks like angel wings, or it's hope that flies and makes it into reality. There are all sorts of myths and beliefs around sand dollar, but it felt good when the marketing team presented it to me, and I'm like, yes, I love it, let's do it. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. I
Thank you.
absolutely love that. I can relate a lot to what you're saying regarding always kind of coming from a point of learning
Mhm.
and recognizing not to stay in the muck of it. Obviously, I've honed in on it and mine's gotten better over time. But I want to ask, even with that, which I totally get,
Mhm.
have there been any limiting beliefs that you've had to kind of squash along the way?
Oh yeah. I A recent one, recent as in 5 years, 6 years. Um, when you come from poverty and homelessness, or now the term is not homeless, it's houseless, sorry, and houselessness. Have you heard that? It's houseless. Yeah, I've learned that. Anyway, um, when you have nothing, like you have no food to eat, and then you get a plate of food, that's enough, and that's great. That's such a blessing. That is enough. Enough is enough,
Yeah.
right? And you're so grateful. And for years, I had an enough mentality. Some folks would say, Pam, that's a scarcity mentality. I don't believe it is. I would call them out on that. I had an enough mentality. It's not popular to hear it out there, enough mentality. What is that? But that's a mentality I had. That's a mindset I had. And the universe gave me just enough. And don't get me wrong, I am very grateful, very, very grateful for my enoughness in terms of what I got from the universe. But about 6 years ago, I do a lot of meditation. I meditate once a day, once every 2 days. But when I meditate, I really feel a connection. And there was this time I was doing a lot of meditation because my anxiety was really high. I was struggling with some physical stuff, and I just realized, it just came to me that it's time to move past enough. Right? I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Move past enough? Because I used to think wanting more than enough, first of all, you need to be grateful for what you have, for that enough that you have. And I used to feel wanting more than enough was maybe being a bit greedy. And if I have enough, why should I want more? Why not leave what's left for other people?
Yeah.
Right? And then it dawned on me, well, guess what? If I am if I have more than enough, and I have wealth, and I have abundance, and I'm prosperous, I have that, I could enjoy it because I deserve it. But also, guess what? I get to help all these other people who need help, right? Folks who I can relate to and who relate to me and who I believe may have been sent to me to help. So if I have enough, I can just do me. If I have more, and I'm blessed with abundance and prosperity, I can help so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think, and that limiting belief of having enough, it's not talked about a lot because to the wrong ears, it could come across as being ungrateful and greedy, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas with the scarcity mindset, a lot of folks, we can relate to that. If you're struggling and stuff, there's scarcity, we understand that. But to say enough is not enough, a lot of folks will be offended by that and quite frankly not get it. But
Yeah.
that's what I had to change in order for my life and my business to really take that turn. In fact, I think that realization came about maybe the first year of my business. And when I took that in, and I took that lesson, and I explored the lesson, and I really applied it to my life, my business just it grew. Yeah. Yeah.
It must feel so nice to have come full circle at this point.
It does. And you know what? But I don't think I've come full circle. I don't know. There's so much I want to do. Sabrina, let me tell you what I want. I want my business to have competent staff that they can just run the business for me. And me, I can then just focus some on counseling, because I'll have some counselors too. But I want to focus on doing what I love, which is counseling, and my heart project, which is cleaning up the oceans and the beaches of the world. So
Wow.
I've not come full circle yet. When you hear me say, and hopefully I could come here and talk about it. When I
Yes.
have enough staff who can run the business the way it needs to be run, and I can scale it and have other counselors, and I can only counsel a few people because I love doing it. I don't ever want to give it up. But then I can spend my time cleaning up beaches, funding organizations to clean up the oceans, going to not so fortunate countries and doing workshops with women who need to hear from other women like myself who've been through the shit, been through it, and was able to come out. I can educate, I can counsel these women so they could stand up in their, stand up tall and in their power and really take charge of their life. That's when I would say I've come full circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a vision.
Thank you. I am holding on to it. I feel it will happen.
What a vision. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
What does success mean to you? Speaking of all of that.
Yeah. Success to me is having the freedom to pursue what really matters to me. So, time freedom, money freedom, health freedom, just having all the freedom possible so I can do what really and truly matters to me.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. One of the things, that I'm noticing throughout, doing this podcast,
Hmm.
um, I've had over 360 women
Oh, my
on this
goodness.
stage. Yeah. Is it's so interesting when I speak to women who understand money mindset and that success always goes back to time,
Mhm.
you know, time and freedom. And I just think that that is so true when you really break it down. When you look at the world as a whole, success is always related to money.
Mhm. It is. It is. But you can have all the money in the world and you don't have the time.
Yeah.
Then you're still in the mud. Yeah, soaking in the mud, right? I find I mean, women come to me for many reasons. Um but there is sort of a common thread, and that common thread is overwhelm, and a lot of it is time overwhelm. Women are too busy taking care of everybody else but themselves,
Yeah.
and that includes too busy to take care of their finances, because taking care of yourself is self-care, and self-care includes financial taking care of your finances. It's not just the spa and the facial and the massage. Yes, it's all of that, but self-care also means taking care of your finances so your finances can in turn take care of you.
Yeah.
Women are too busy, from what I see a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times they are too busy and too overwhelmed to take care of their finances. So they let it slide. They ignore it for a month or two. And then, it's just like a snowball after that, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely. Um, I would love, first of all, I want to give
Hmm.
a shout out to those listening. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with Pamela and I as we speak about her journey and her story. Yes, thank you. Those of you that are watching on the replay, maybe you're watching this a little bit later today or tomorrow or this week. Make sure you hashtag replay so that we know where you are watching us at and we can send you some love. But I want to ask Pamela, can you give us a better idea as to what you really do for humans? And for those that are resonating with your story and all the goodness that you're sharing, where can people find you at?
So I am in the beautiful Ottawa, Canada, and my website is sanddollar.co, not com.co. When the marketing company was doing the rebrand, they're like, oh, co is so hip. And it's the new fresh thing. Really and truly.com wasn't available, but anyway, it's sanddollar.co. My Facebook page is Sanddollar Financial Literacy, and my handle on Insta, it's Sanddollar Financial. So that's there. um, in terms of what I do for humans, so I work primarily with women, and I need to say that when I say woman, I refer to anybody who identifies as woman, including the non binary. And I work with them really so they can get their shit together and live the life that they really want to live. A lot of women out there, and you know it, I know it, we're
Yeah.
not living the life we really want to live. Some of us are in relationships that it's just draining us, it's sucking the life out of us,
Yeah.
but we feel we need to stay because we can't do better. A lot of my clients are in that situation. They reach out to me and I help them. And I know you've mentioned exit plan. I've seen that somewhere on your
Yeah.
thing, but I actually help them specifically with the money part. I've done it too, right? I help them with the money part. Okay, let's see what a life on your own would look like.
Yep.
Let's compare that to what you have. And if there's a gap, we figure out a way to fill that gap. But you can't stay because you feel you can't do better. I'm like, no, do something. Let's work together. Let's figure it out. It might take 6 months because we work together for 6 months, one of the private coaching session I have. And it might take 6 months, but the 6 months of planning and strategizing and putting things in place. So when you're ready to leave, you're not falling flat on your face. You have something there solid that you can lean on. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, I work with a lot of single moms who are just, it's like that wheel, right? That hamster wheel. They're just going and can't stop because they're so busy and they're piling up debt, or they're just spending, they're too overwhelmed to do a budget. Their money mindset is trash because they've just taken in everything that they have heard from their parents, their grandparents, have believed things in them, certain beliefs and behaviors that no longer apply, but they hold on to it because they're so busy.
Yeah.
They have not taken the time to do any kind of work. And I work with numbers at the dollars and cents of money management, but I also do a lot of work with beliefs and relationships and money mindset. So I marry the two. It's how I say it. And because one alone will not solve the issue.
Yep.
We need both. And when women work with me, that's what we do. And they love it. They love it, and I love the results. They love the results, and empowering these women to live the life they really want to live.
That is fantastic. And you already told us your big dreams for your business, which I just think are so great and so vivid, which I so appreciate. But I want to ask, why do you do what you do? You could have chosen anything. Why do you do what you do?
I know I could have chosen anything, but you see what my mother went through and what that man did to her, and what he did to her, he didn't just do to her. We are feeling the effects of that 4 generations later. We have siblings who don't talk to each other, nieces and nephews who are just like, what I heard, I don't want to know, whatever. 4 generations are being affected by
Wow.
that one move of my mother not taking charge of her money, not
Wow.
protecting it, and having somebody else take charge and then ruin her children, her grandchildren, and her great grandchildren. I don't want to see that happen to any woman. And that's why I do what I do. Yeah.
Absolutely. A real cycle breaker right there.
We break cycles. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so fantastic. I so appreciate you coming on, hanging out, and sharing some of your past stories. Do you have any closing thoughts as we wrap up for all the ladies listening?
I'm so happy you asked because tomorrow, November 1st, and for those who are watching it in the replay, I hope it's still in November when you see it. Tomorrow in Canada starts Financial Literacy Month. And every financial literacy month, I hold that space and I offer some free stuff to my community. This month, I'm doing a 5 webinar series, and it's every Tuesday for the month of November from 10 to 11. I'm having Kat Stancic. She's a lead generation expert. I have Lisa Dad. She is a former TEDx speaker. She is a sales guru. Like, I'm having the top of the top there talking. I have somebody who will be talking about for the new retirement, given how everything is right now. And then the final session, it's mental health and finances. It's all free. It's an hour long. If you go on my website, on my Facebook page, you can find it. The link, you can register there. And you'll get the link. We kick off tomorrow, November 1st at 10 a.m. With Kat. And then it's every other Tuesday from 10 o'clock. So please come join us.
That is fantastic. And we can find that on your website?
Yes.
Beautiful.
And you know what? I should say specifically on the website, if you go on the blogs, it's my latest blog. I have everything there.
Beautiful. So cool. Thank you so much for that. Well, this has been great.
Oh, I love this. I love it. Thank you so much, Sabrina.
This has been great. I love your story, and I love everything that you are doing despite your story. I think that's fantastic.
Yep.
So for those of you watching live, for those of you watching on the replay, if you resonate with Pamela and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure to check her website, follow her on social media. We love to connect people on this platform in order to continue to rise. And as she said on her newest blog post on her website, if you want to join that free event that she's having, make sure to link up and sign up. So thank you so much for joining us today on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, a struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me at hernation.like. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire